I never thought I'd be here, sitting in the dark, clutching my phone, and watching a tracking app light up like some twisted Christmas tree. It's 1:12 a.m., and I'm alone, trying to slow the heartbeat that seems loud enough to echo through the room. The signs were subtle at first, easy to brush aside as paranoia. I told myself that it was my own insecurities, that it couldn't possibly be true. But the look in her eyes, the way she'd laugh a little too brightly when her phone buzzed, started painting a picture I didn't want to see. Then came the moment I couldn't ignore. 2 weeks ago, we were supposed to meet for lunch. I had taken the day off just to surprise her, something spontaneous to rekindle whatever seemed to be slipping between us. But she canceled last minute, said she was busy with work. It seemed harmless, almost believable, until I saw the photo. It was just a random picture that popped up in my feed, one of her friends' posts from that same lunch hour, showing my wife sitting at a cozy little cafe with someone I'd never seen before. A man. She looked radiant. I could have shrugged it off. Maybe he was just a coworker, maybe a friend she hadn't mentioned. But something gnawed at me, a feeling so strong it twisted my gut. That night, when she came home smelling like a stranger's cologne, I knew I couldn't ignore it any longer. I started checking her phone, just once or twice, trying to convince myself that I was overreacting. But tonight, something's different. She left in a hurry, saying she needed a breath of fresh air. It's been 2 hours. She's not answering texts, and her phone's GPS shows her on the other side of town, parked outside some dimly lit building I don't recognize. And here I am, staring at that blinking on my screen, my fingers itching to hit the ignition and drive over there. The decision's already made before I even realize it. I grab my keys, heart pounding, and head for the door. Tonight, I'll find out if the nightmare I've been pushing away is real. There's no turning back now. The drive feels endless, each streetlight casting ghostly shadows through my windshield as I grip the steering wheel, knuckles white. The radio is off, just the hum of the engine and my racing thoughts filling the silence. I know this part of town, industrial, mostly warehouses, with a few dive bars that cling to life around the edges of the city. It's not where she'd usually be, not at this hour, not alone. The closer I get, the more my mind starts spinning with every possible scenario. Maybe she's meeting an old friend, someone who needed to talk or vent. But then, I remember her expression when she left, distracted, guilty even. She didn't even say goodbye, just mumbled something vague and headed out. That wasn't her, wasn't the woman I married. As I pull up to the address on my screen, I cut the engine, my car blending into the shadows. Her car is parked a few yards ahead, half hidden beneath a burned-out streetlight. A small, nondescript building looms before me, with only a flicker of light coming from a high, narrow window on the side. It's quiet, too quiet, as if the whole street is holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. I take a deep breath, feeling my resolve harden. There's no more pretending, no more excusing away her behavior. I'm here, and I'm going to see the truth for myself. I step out of the car, the cold night air hitting me like a slap. Every footstep feels deafening as I approach her car. I hesitate for a moment, scanning the shadows, making sure I'm alone. The building has a side entrance, an unmarked door slightly ajar, as if someone forgot to pull it closed. My heart hammers in my chest, louder than any sound around me. I reach for the door, inching it open with a hand that's suddenly clammy. A narrow hallway stretches out before me, dimly lit and silent. I can hear faint voices from somewhere deeper in the building, muffled and distorted, but unmistakably close. I swallow hard, moving forward, my footsteps muffled by the worn carpet. Each step feels like an eternity, and then I see them. A door cracked open just enough to reveal her. My wife. She's sitting close to someone, her hand on his arm, and they're laughing. Their heads close together in a way that's too intimate for comfort. My stomach twists as the pieces fall into place, the weight of betrayal crashing over me like a wave. For a moment, I just stand there, paralyzed, watching as they exchange glances that speak volumes. I should walk away, but every instinct in my body is screaming at me to confront them. My fists clench, and I step forward, pushing the door wide open. Her laughter dies the moment she sees me, her eyes widening in shock, her face draining of color. What the hell is going on here? My voice is low, barely a whisper, but it carries the weight of 1,000 unspoken questions. There's a silence so thick, I can almost feel it pressing against my skin. Her face is frozen in horror, mouth slightly open, as if she's grasping for the right words but finds none. The man beside her, mid-30s, rugged, with an expression of instant guilt, doesn't look at me. Instead, he shifts uncomfortably, like a deer caught in headlights, and glances at her for guidance. Who is he? I demand, each word like a bullet. You said you were working late, meeting a friend, but you're here with him? My voice trembles, not with fear, but with an anger so raw it feels foreign, like it belongs to someone else. She stammers, trying to piece together a sentence that could erase the scene before me. I didn't mean for you to find out like this. Her voice fades, and she looks down, as if the floor might open up and save her from the weight of this confrontation. The man finally stands, raising his hands in a gesture of surrender. Look, man, he starts, trying to sound reasonable, as if this could be brushed off with a simple apology. This is just. Look, let's not make this a big scene. His tone is almost patronizing, and it hits me harder than a slap. A big scene? I echo, my voice laced with bitter disbelief. This is my life you're talking about. My wife. I turn back to her, barely able to keep the rage from boiling over. After everything, this is where we end up? Her eyes finally meet mine, and I see the truth there, clear as day. She's not sorry. She's not even sad. She looks relieved, as if a weight has been lifted. The realization hits me like a gut punch, knocking the wind out of me. I didn't plan this, okay? She says, her voice taking on a defensive edge. But you've been so distant lately. All you care about is work, your projects. I've felt alone for months, like I'm just a ghost in my own house. And you thought this was the solution? I gesture between her and the man who, by now, is shifting from foot to foot, inching towards the door. How long has this been going on? She hesitates, her eyes flicking to the ground, before muttering, a few months. I didn't know how to tell you. I thought maybe things would change. I laugh, a bitter sound that echoes through the empty hall. Change? You could have talked to me, but instead, you chose him. I can't even look at her anymore. The betrayal too fresh, too raw. The man mumbles something about not wanting trouble and slinks out of the room, leaving me alone with her, the silence now heavier than ever. She finally breaks, her voice cracking. I didn't want this to happen. I didn't mean to hurt you. But can you really say we were happy? I look at her, the woman I once loved more than anything in this world, and all I can feel now is emptiness. I shake my head slowly, the realization settling over me like a cold shadow. Maybe we weren't, but you made damn sure we never would be. I turn and leave, her voice calling after me, but I don't stop. I keep walking, down the dark hallway, out into the cold night. I need air. I need to escape the weight of everything that's suffocating me. I step out into the night, the cold air cutting through my anger like a blade. The sky is dark, clouds rolling in as if nature itself is mourning this twisted revelation. I walk, barely aware of where I'm going. My mind a storm of questions, memories, and the betrayal that just unfolded in front of me. Each step feels heavier than the last, and I can feel the pain creeping in, slithering into the spaces where anger was just moments ago. For years, I thought we were solid. Sure, we had our rough patches, but who doesn't? I thought we'd weathered them, that we were one of those couples who could last, who'd grown stronger together. I let myself believe we were happy. Now, those memories feel like a joke, each one tainted by her lies. I don't know how long I walk, but eventually, I end up back in my car, staring at the dashboard like it might offer some kind of answer. My hands are trembling, my mind racing back to her excuses, all the moments I trusted her without question. She wasn't just my wife. She was my partner, my best friend. I told her everything, shared my hopes, my fears, my dreams. And now, it's like I don't even know who she is. I glance at my phone, at the messages she's left unread. I can almost hear her voice in my head, making excuses, twisting words to make this somehow feel like my fault. But that's not going to happen. Not this time. The anger bubbles up again, and I make a decision. If she thinks she can throw away everything we built, everything we shared, and walk away without facing the consequences, she's in for a rude awakening. I'll confront her properly, not in some back room with her lover lingering around like a coward. No, she'll see the full weight of what she's done, and I'll be damned if I let her walk away unscathed. The next morning, I barely sleep. I lie awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, reliving the betrayal over and over. When the sun finally rises, I feel a strange sense of calm. I've made up my mind. I'm not the kind of person to be pushed aside and ignored. She's about to learn that. I gather my things, putting on a mask of composure that hides the storm raging inside me. She doesn't know that I've seen her with him, that I've watched her tear apart everything we built with someone I didn't even know existed until last night. And she's not going to know, yet. When I finally get home, she's there, waiting, with a carefully composed expression that falls somewhere between guilt and defiance. She glances up, surprised, maybe even a bit relieved to see I came back. But I can tell by the look in her eyes that she's already planning her next move, working out how to spin this in her favor. I keep my voice steady, calm. We need to talk, I say, and the flicker of hesitation in her eyes tells me she knows exactly what's coming. She nods, leading me to the kitchen table like this is just another routine conversation. She takes a seat, folding her hands in front of her, her face a careful mask. I don't sit down. I stand across from her, leaning against the counter, keeping my distance. I can't be close to her. Not now, not after everything. So, I begin, meeting her gaze head-on. How long have you been lying to me? The mask cracks for a split second, but she regains her composure, taking a deep breath. It's complicated, she says, her voice barely a whisper. No, I say, my tone cold and unyielding. It's actually pretty simple. She flinches, and I realize she's never seen this side of me. She's never had to face the consequences of her actions, and for the first time, she's realizing that her choices don't just disappear. She opens her mouth, ready to launch into whatever story she's rehearsed, but I raise a hand, cutting her off before she can start. I'm done listening to excuses. I'm done being made a fool. Let me make this easy for you, I say, folding my arms. I know about him. I saw you with him. The words hang in the air, heavy and final. Her face pales, the blood draining as reality sets in. For a moment, she just sits there, stunned into silence. Then, as if a switch flips, her expression shifts, hardening with a defiant edge. You had no right to follow me, she says, her tone sharp. What were you thinking, spying on me like that? A bitter laugh escapes me before I can stop it. Spying on you? I repeat, shaking my head in disbelief. Is that really where you want to go with this? You're the one lying and sneaking around, and you think I'm the problem because I finally caught on? She crosses her arms, mirroring my stance, her jaw set in a stubborn line. If you'd been more present, if you'd actually cared about what was going on between us, maybe I wouldn't have had to look elsewhere. The words hit like a punch, cold and calculated. She's trying to shift the blame, to make this somehow my fault, but I see through it, clear as day. So it's my fault that you've been cheating? That's the story you're going with? I can barely keep the anger out of my voice, the betrayal simmering beneath the surface. You never listen. You're always busy, wrapped up in your own world. She snaps, her voice rising. It's like I'm invisible to you. I take a step closer, my gaze never leaving hers. Invisible? Is that really what you think? I've done everything for you, for us. I was here, every single day, trusting you, supporting you. And the one time you felt invisible, you decided to betray everything we've built? She drops her gaze, staring down at the table as if it holds the answers. I see her fingers tighten, knuckles white, and for a brief moment, I think maybe she feels a sliver of regret. But then, just as quickly, she looks up, and any trace of remorse vanishes, replaced by a cold, distant expression I barely recognize. I needed someone who actually understood me, she says softly, each word like a nail in the coffin. Someone who saw me. You were always too distracted to even notice I was slipping away. I take a deep breath, clenching my fists to keep from saying something I might regret. So you threw it all away for a stranger? You threw me away, our life, our memories, because I wasn't enough for you? She flinches, but holds her ground, lifting her chin in a defiant tilt. Maybe we were just fooling ourselves. Maybe this was never meant to last. Her words settle over me, cutting deeper than I thought possible. It's one thing to see her with someone else, but to hear her admit that she's been living a lie, that she's questioning our entire life together, it's almost unbearable. Fine, I say, my voice barely above a whisper, my anger cooling into something sharper, colder. If that's how you feel, then there's nothing left to discuss. I turn away, heading toward the door, but she calls after me, her voice laced with a desperation that almost stops me. Almost. Wait, she says, softer now, almost pleading. Can we talk about this? I pause, hand on the doorknob, fighting the urge to turn around. Part of me wants to stay, to listen, to understand why she did this. But the other part, the part that's been broken by her betrayal, knows that listening won't change a thing. Without another word, I walk out, leaving her and everything I thought I knew behind me. I drive aimlessly, my mind a blur as I try to make sense of everything. Her words echo in my head, each one sharper than the last. Maybe we were just fooling ourselves. It's as if she's torn apart every promise we ever made to each other, each one shredded like scraps of an old, worn-out story. Eventually, I find myself parked at a small, empty lot on the edge of town. I just sit there, staring out into the darkness, letting the weight of it all settle in. The silence is overwhelming, and with each passing moment, the reality sinks deeper. The woman I loved, the life I believed in, it's all gone, replaced by the emptiness of betrayal. I try to recall the good memories, the laughter, the way we used to be, but each one is tainted now, overshadowed by the images of her with that stranger. And the worst part? She didn't even deny it. She didn't try to apologize or make things right. She just let it all fall apart. My phone vibrates, breaking through the silence. I glance at the screen and see her name flashing, a dozen missed calls and messages piling up. For a moment, I consider picking up, hearing what she has to say. But then I remember the cold look in her eyes, the way she practically blamed me for her infidelity. No, I can't go back. Not now. As the hours pass, the anger starts to fade, replaced by a hollow ache that settles deep in my chest. I feel like I've been stripped of something vital, like a part of me has been ripped away. I wonder if I'll ever feel whole again, or if this betrayal will leave a permanent scar, a reminder of everything I thought I had but never really did. Eventually, I make my way back home. The house is dark, silent, and for the first time, it feels like a stranger's place, empty and unfamiliar. Her things are scattered everywhere. Her coat on the rack, her perfume lingering in the air, her favorite mug sitting on the kitchen counter. It's almost as if she's left pieces of herself here, mocking me with reminders of what used to be. I find myself wandering through the house, each room bringing back memories that now feel distant, almost surreal. I pause in the hallway, where our wedding photo hangs on the wall. In the picture, we're both laughing, looking at each other with a love that seemed unbreakable. I reach up, my fingers brushing against the frame, feeling a surge of pain so intense it's almost physical. In a moment of impulse, I take the frame off the wall, setting it face down on a shelf. I can't bear to look at it anymore. It's like a relic from another life, a reminder of something that no longer exists. Finally, I make my way to the bedroom, the place where we shared so much, where we once whispered promises and dreams. But tonight, it feels like a void, hollow and lifeless. I sit on the edge of the bed, burying my face in my hands, trying to hold back the flood of emotions that threaten to overwhelm me. For a moment, I let myself feel it all, the anger, the pain, the betrayal. I let it wash over me, consuming every part of me, until there's nothing left but silence. Then, as I sit there in the dark, a strange sense of calm settles over me. This is it. This is the end. And somehow, In the depths of that realization, I feel a spark of resolve. I won't let her actions define me. I won't let her betrayal destroy the life I've built. Tomorrow, I'll take the first steps forward. I don't know what those steps will look like yet, but I know one thing. I'm done with her, and I'm done with the lies. The morning sun seeps through the blinds, casting long shadows across the room. For a moment, I forget everything, savoring the calm before reality comes crashing back. But then, like a wave, it all returns. The betrayal, the confrontation, the emptiness left in its wake. My chest tightens as I sit up, running a hand over my face. It's time to face this head-on. I decide to take action, to start the process of reclaiming my life. I pull out my phone and scroll through my contacts, landing on my lawyer's number. The thought of making this official, of putting an end to our marriage, sends a shiver down my spine, but I know it's what I need to do. I press the call button, my heart pounding as I wait for him to answer. "Hey, it's been a while," my lawyer says, sounding cheerful. "What's going on?" I clear my throat, trying to steady my voice. I need to start the divorce process." The words feel foreign, heavy, as if they're coming from someone else. But once they're out, there's no taking them back. There's a pause on the other end of the line, and then he says, more gently, "I'm sorry to hear that. Let's set up a meeting, talk through everything you'll need to consider." We arrange to meet that afternoon, and when I hang up, I feel a strange sense of relief, like a weight has been lifted. The path forward is still unclear, but at least I've taken the first step. The hours drag by, each one filled with an anxious energy that propels me through tasks around the house. I clean up the kitchen, fold laundry, pack a few of my things. It's mundane, almost therapeutic, but it helps distract me from the storm raging inside. At one point, I stumble upon a box of old mementos, cards we wrote to each other on birthdays and anniversaries, small gifts exchanged over the years. I pick up one of the cards, her handwriting looping across the page in a message filled with love and promises. "Forever," she'd written. The word stares back at me, mocking and hollow. I toss the card back into the box and close it, pushing it to the back of the closet. Finally, it's time for the meeting, and I arrive at my lawyer's office, my mind racing with questions and fears. We talk through everything: division of assets, financial arrangements, the painful but necessary steps of dismantling a life built together. He hands me a stack of paperwork, the official beginning of the end. "If you're sure about this, we'll get the ball rolling," he says, his tone gentle but firm. I nod, a lump forming in my throat. I'm sure. The drive home feels surreal. The city buzzes with life around me, cars honking, people rushing along the sidewalks, oblivious to the upheaval in my world. I feel strangely disconnected, like I'm watching it all from a distance. When I pull into the driveway, her car is parked there. She's sitting on the front steps, her head in her hands, as if she's been waiting for me. My heart sinks. I don't want to face her, not after everything, but I know there's no avoiding it. I step out of the car, and she stands up, her face etched with worry and regret. "Can we talk?" she asks, her voice barely above a whisper. I hesitate, every instinct screaming at me to walk away. But something in her eyes, a flicker of the woman I once loved, makes me pause. I nod, crossing my arms as I stand a few feet away from her, keeping the distance between us. She takes a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly. I'm sorry," she begins, her voice breaking. "I know I hurt you, and I know I can't take it back, but please, just let me explain." I stare at her, the anger simmering beneath the surface, but I force myself to listen. She owes me at least that much. "Go ahead," I say, my voice cold and steady. "Explain." She takes a shaky breath, her eyes darting to the ground before meeting mine. "I know you probably think I'm just trying to save face, but it's not that. I messed up. I felt so alone, like I was invisible to you, and I made the worst decision of my life because of it." She pauses, waiting for me to say something, but I stay silent, unmoved. Her hands twist together, and she continues, "At first, it was just talking. Someone to listen, someone to remind me I was worth noticing. And then, one day, it went too far. and I didn't know how to come back from it. I didn't want to hurt you, but I felt like I was already in too deep. I clenched my jaw, the words grating against my raw emotions. So instead of talking to me, instead of trying to work through it, you decided to betray me? Her face crumples, and she nods, unable to meet my gaze. I know it was wrong. I know I destroyed everything we had. But I'm asking you to understand, to forgive, maybe someday, at least. Forgive you? I laugh bitterly, the sound hollow and bitter. You don't get it, do you? You didn't just make a mistake. You shattered everything we built together. You let someone else into the life we promised each other, and now you want forgiveness? She takes a step toward me, her voice desperate. Please, just give me one more chance. Let me make it right. I can prove to you that I'm sorry, that I'll never do this again. We can fix this together. I step back, keeping the space between us. Fix this? There's no fixing this. You didn't just break my trust. You destroyed it. Every time I look at you now, all I see is the lie, the betrayal. How am I supposed to move past that? Her eyes fill with tears, and for a brief moment, I feel a twinge of sympathy. But it's quickly swallowed by the anger and hurt that still churn within me. She had her chance. She had my loyalty, my trust, and she threw it all away. I know I don't deserve it, she whispers, barely audible. But please, let's try. I take a deep breath, the weight of my decision settling over me like a cold blanket. I never imagined we'd be here, at the point of no return. But as much as it hurts, as much as a part of me wants to believe her, I know I can't do this. Not anymore. No, I say, my voice firm. I can't keep pretending this didn't happen. I can't go back to the way things were. You made your choice, and now I'm making mine. Her face falls, the reality of my words sinking in. So, this is it? She asks, her voice trembling. I nod, the finality of it settling over me. Yeah, this is it. I've already started the paperwork. You'll be hearing from my lawyer. She stares at me, stunned, as if she never thought I'd go through with it. But the betrayal is too deep, the wounds too fresh. I can't let myself be dragged back into a life where trust is a question mark, where every glance, every touch would be haunted by the shadow of her infidelity. I turn and walk inside, leaving her standing on the front steps, alone and defeated. My hands shake as I close the door behind me, but I know I've made the right choice. There's no going back, and for the first time, I feel a sliver of peace. In the quiet of the house, I sink into the nearest chair, exhaustion finally catching up with me. This is just the beginning, the first step on a long road ahead. But as painful as it is, I know that I'm choosing myself, my dignity, my worth. I sit there for a long time, the silence heavy but oddly comforting. Whatever comes next, I'll face it alone, and somehow, I know I'll be okay. The days that follow are a strange blur of numbness and clarity, moments where everything feels sharp and painfully real, followed by stretches where I go through the motions like a ghost. Each day, I wake up alone, the silence in the house serving as a constant reminder of the life that just ended. Friends start to check in, some knowing the details, others just sensing that something is wrong. I appreciate their support, but I keep the conversation short. How could I explain this gaping wound? The betrayal that's reshaped everything I once believed about love, trust, and commitment. One evening, I sit down to go through our shared possessions. It feels surreal to be dividing things we once built together. Each item a symbol of the life we had planned, the memories now hollow and tarnished. I go through her belongings, boxing up the things she'll need, things she left behind in her hurried exit that day. I don't want any of it around me. Not her clothes, her books, not even the throw pillows she insisted on buying. The sooner it's out of my sight, the sooner I can start to reclaim my own space. As I pack, I come across our wedding album tucked at the bottom of a drawer. My fingers hesitate on the cover, the glossy photo of us smiling back at me like ghosts from another world. I open it, flipping through pages of happiness captured in time. Our first dance, the look on her face as she said her vows, the way she held my hand, as if she'd never let go. A bitter taste fills my mouth, and I slam the album shut, tossing it into the box with the rest of her things. It's like looking at someone else's life, a story that no longer belongs to me. That night, I sleep better than I have in weeks. There's a strange kind of freedom in letting go, in releasing the weight of memories that no longer serve me. I know there's a long way to go, but for the first time, I feel a flicker of hope. The next morning, I decide to reclaim the house, to make it mine. I start with the bedroom, stripping the sheets, the pillows, even the curtains. I paint the walls a fresh color, one she never would have chosen, and buy new bedding that feels like a small luxury. Each change feels like a small victory, a step toward building something new from the ashes of what she destroyed. Piece by piece, I reclaim the space. I throw out the souvenirs from trips we took, the little reminders of a life that turned out to be nothing more than a fragile facade. By the time I'm finished, the house feels lighter, more like me, less like us. It's a bittersweet feeling, but I realize it's a necessary step. I'm learning to move forward, learning to let go of the weight that's been dragging me down. As I settle into this new chapter, I find myself reflecting on everything that led to this point. I realize that maybe I wasn't as happy as I thought, that maybe I'd overlooked my own needs, buried my own dreams in the name of compromise. Her betrayal was a wound, but it's also forced me to confront truths I had been avoiding for a long time. For the first time, I allow myself to feel a spark of something else, something I haven't felt in a while. Possibility. I don't know what the future holds, but I know one thing. I'm done living for anyone else. From now on, I'm reclaiming my life, my happiness on my own terms. And as I close the last box of her things and place it by the door, ready for her to pick up, I feel a strange, unexpected relief. This chapter is closing, but a new one is waiting. I have a long way to go, but I'm ready to face it, one day at a time. A few weeks pass, and with each day, the weight of her betrayal feels a little lighter. I get into a routine, filling my days with work, exercise, and small projects around the house. The quiet becomes less of a reminder of what I lost and more of a space I'm learning to appreciate. For the first time in years, I have room to breathe, to think, and to figure out who I am outside of being us. One afternoon, as I'm fixing up the guest room, my phone buzzes with an incoming message. I glance at the screen and see her name. That familiar name that once brought me comfort now only brings a dull pang. I hesitate, fingers hovering over the screen, before finally opening it. The message is short, almost tentative. I need to pick up my things. Can we talk? I let out a long breath, my mind racing. Part of me wants to ignore it, to pretend I didn't see it and let her fade from my life like a bad dream. But I know this needs to be faced, once and for all. I need the closure, the finality that will let me move on without any lingering questions or what-ifs. After a long pause, I type back, "Fine. Tomorrow at noon." I hit send, feeling a strange sense of calm settle over me. This will be it. The last time I have to see her, the last conversation we'll ever have. And when it's done, I'll finally be free. The next day, she arrives right on time, her car pulling up to the curb outside. I watch her through the window as she steps out, looking around nervously, as if she's not sure she's welcome. I open the door, my face expressionless, and step aside to let her in. There's no point in small talk. I just want this over with. She walks in slowly, her gaze flicking over the changes I've made to the house. I can see a flicker of surprise in her eyes as she notices the new colors, the rearranged furniture. This isn't her space anymore, and I think she realizes it too. I point to the boxes by the door. "Your things are packed. Take them and go." She nods, but instead of heading straight for the boxes, she stops in front of me, searching my face. "Can we talk? Just for a minute?" I cross my arms, keeping my tone cold. What is there left to say? She looks down, her hands twisting together as if she's trying to find the right words. I want you to know that I'm sorry. Really. I know I hurt you, and I'll regret that for the rest of my life." I look at her, searching for any sign of sincerity, but all I see is a stranger who's trying to justify the damage she's done. "Sorry doesn't fix anything," I reply, my voice calm but firm. "It doesn't erase what you did, and it doesn't change the fact that you destroyed everything we had." She nods, her eyes glistening with tears she's fighting to hold back. I know that. I know I can't undo it. But I need you to know that it wasn't because of you. It was, I don't even know what it was. A mistake. A horrible, selfish mistake? I shake my head, feeling a surge of anger bubbling up. You're right, it was selfish. You chose to betray me, to lie to my face, and for what? A thrill? Attention? You threw away our life for a stranger, and now you're sorry because it didn't work out the way you wanted? Her face crumples, and she covers her mouth with a trembling hand. I just wish I could make you understand. I never wanted this to end like this. Well, it did, I say, my voice like ice. And now we're done. I don't want to hear from you again, and I don't want any apologies or explanations. You made your choice and I made mine. She looks at me, a flicker of regret in her eyes, but I don't waver. I won't let her words sink in or sway me from the path I'm on. This is my life now, my chance to start over, and I won't let her drag me back into the pain she caused. Without another word, she picks up the boxes, carrying them out one by one. I watch her load them into her car, her movements slow, as if she's reluctant to leave. But when the last box is in, she stands by her car for a moment, glancing back at me. I stand in the doorway, arms crossed, making it clear that there's nothing left to say. Finally, she gets in the car, closing the door with a soft thud, and drives away. I watch her disappear down the street, a strange mix of relief and sadness settling over me. This is it. She's gone. The silence that follows is heavy, but it's a silence I can finally welcome. She's out of my life for good, and now I'm free to rebuild on my own terms. In the days that follow, I feel a strange sense of freedom, as though a weight I didn't realize I was carrying has finally been lifted. The anger and sadness are still there, but now they're tempered by something else, a sense of peace, a clarity that I hadn't felt in a long time. With her gone, I can finally focus on myself and start piecing together a life that feels whole. I begin to rebuild my routine, setting small goals each day. I go for morning runs, pushing myself further each time, letting the rhythm of my footsteps and the crisp morning air clear my mind. I dive into work, throwing myself into projects that had taken a back seat for too long, rediscovering the satisfaction that comes from putting my energy into something productive. One afternoon, as I'm clearing out a closet in the guest room, I stumble upon a box of old journals. They're worn, pages filled with thoughts and dreams from years ago, back before life got tangled up in someone else's desires. I sit down, flipping through the pages, reading entries from when I was younger, more optimistic, filled with ambitions that I'd long forgotten. I pause on a page where I'd written a list of goals, things I wanted to do, places I wanted to go, dreams I wanted to chase. There's something both painful and inspiring about seeing those words, a reminder of the person I once was and the person I could become again. I decide then and there to reclaim those dreams, to make a new list and start living for myself. The first thing on my new list is a road trip, a spontaneous journey without a destination, just me and the open road. I take a couple of days to plan, pack a bag, and map out a few places I've always wanted to see. There's something exhilarating about it, the idea of heading off into the unknown, with no one to answer to but myself. On the morning of my departure, I load up the car, feeling a sense of anticipation I haven't felt in years. The freedom is intoxicating, a chance to leave everything behind and just drive, with nothing but my thoughts and the music blaring from the speakers. As I hit the highway, the city falls away behind me, replaced by rolling hills, endless stretches of farmland, and the wide open sky. The first few hours are quiet, my mind drifting between memories and possibilities. It's strange, the way the pain of betrayal lingers, but with each mile, it feels a little more distant, a little less sharp. The open road has a way of putting things into perspective, reminding me that there's a world beyond the hurt, a world waiting to be explored. I make my first stop at a small town I'd never even heard of, a quiet place with a charming main street lined with mom-and-pop shops. I grab a coffee at a little cafe, enjoying the solitude, the chance to just be without anyone else's expectations. There's no one here who knows me, no reminders of the life I left behind. Just the quiet hum of the town, and the simple pleasure of being alone. As the day turns to evening, I find myself at a lookout point on the edge of town, watching the sun sink behind the mountains in a blaze of colors. The beauty of it takes my breath away, and for the first time in what feels like forever, I feel a sense of hope. I realize that this journey isn't just about escaping. It's about rediscovering who I am, rebuilding from the ground up. I make a vow to myself, right there under the fading light. I'll let go of the anger, the bitterness, the hurt that's weighed me down. I'll embrace the uncertainty, the possibility of what lies ahead. Because now, I'm living for myself, following my own path, and that freedom is worth more than any relationship could ever give me. As night falls, I head back to my car, ready to see where the road takes me next. There's a long journey ahead, but for the first time, I feel ready to face it, 1 mile, 1 day, 1 moment at a time. The days roll by in a haze of winding roads, quiet towns, and open landscapes. Each morning, I wake up in a new place, grab a coffee from a local diner, and head out to explore whatever the day has in store. I'm learning to appreciate the simple things, the solitude, the freedom of going wherever I want without a plan or agenda. Somewhere along the way, I stop at a state park with a reputation for incredible hiking trails. I'm not much of a hiker, but something about the idea of climbing to the top, of reaching a summit on my own, feels symbolic. It's early when I start the hike, the morning mist still clinging to the trees, the ground soft under my boots. I follow the trail, breathing in the fresh, earthy scent of the forest, feeling the strain in my legs as I climb higher. The path is steep, winding up through dense trees that block out most of the sunlight. It's challenging, but with each step, I feel a renewed sense of purpose, as if I'm leaving behind pieces of the hurt with every footfall. The climb is tough, but I push through, determined to make it to the top. When I finally reach the summit, the view is breathtaking. Rolling hills stretch out as far as the eye can see, the trees a sea of green, dotted with bursts of autumn colors. The sky is wide and open, and for a moment, I feel like I'm standing on top of the world. It's a perspective I haven't had in a long time, a reminder of how small my problems are in the grand scheme of things. I sit on a rock at the edge of the cliff, catching my breath, feeling the wind brush against my face. There, with nothing but the vast landscape before me, I feel a deep sense of release. I think about everything I've been carrying, anger, betrayal, sadness, and I realize it's time to let it go. This is my life, my journey, and holding on to that pain only chains me to a past that no longer serves me. For a while, I just sit there, letting the silence fill me, feeling the weight lift from my shoulders. I make a promise to myself. From this point on, I'll stop letting her betrayal define me. I'll live for myself, embrace the unknown, and let go of the things that no longer belong in my life. It's a strange mix of sadness and freedom, but I know it's a step in the right direction. As I head back down the trail, I feel lighter, as though I've left something behind at the top of that mountain. I take my time, savoring each step, feeling a new sense of peace settling within me. The next day, I continue my journey, stopping at a small lakeside cabin I found by chance. It's a quiet place, tucked away from the main road, surrounded by tall trees and the gentle lapping of water against the shore. I decide to stay for a few days, to give myself time to reflect, to just be. At night, I sit on the cabin's porch, staring up at the stars, letting the tranquility wash over me. I think about what's next, about the life waiting for me when I return. There's no plan, no blueprint for what's ahead, but for the first time, that doesn't scare me. It excites me. The possibilities feel endless, and I realize I have the power to shape my future, to make it whatever I want it to be. With each passing day, the memories of what happened feel a little further away, like shadows fading in the light. I'm learning to forgive, not just her, but also myself, for the things I overlooked, the times I compromised too much. I know now that I deserve better, that I owe it to myself to pursue a life that fulfills me. As I sit by the lake, watching the sun dip below the horizon, I feel a profound sense of gratitude for this journey, for the lessons learned, for the strength I've discovered within myself. I may not have chosen this path, but I'm choosing how I walk it. And that, more than anything, feels like the beginning of something beautiful. As my road trip nears its end, I find myself with a newfound sense of purpose. The open roads, the quiet towns, the solitude. It's all helped me rediscover who I am, away from the shadows of betrayal and heartache. I feel clearer, more confident, and most importantly, ready to face the future, whatever it holds. On my last night, I decide to stay in a small, cozy inn on the edge of a quaint town. There's a community bonfire in the square, and locals and travelers alike gather to share stories, laughter, and warmth under the starlit sky. For the first time in a long time, I feel comfortable being around people, enjoying the sense of connection without the burden of explaining my story. As I sit by the fire, a stranger, a man about my age, strikes up a conversation. We chat about the town, about travels and life. He talks about his own recent heartbreak, a relationship that ended unexpectedly. I listen, nodding and understanding, recognizing the pain in his voice because it mirrors my own. We exchange stories of loss, of starting over, of the challenges and unexpected moments of joy that come with forging a new path. There's something healing about sharing these experiences with someone who truly understands, and by the end of the night, I feel like I've made a new friend, someone who gets what it's like to rebuild from the ground up. As the fire dies down and people start to drift back to their rooms, he turns to me and says, "It's strange, isn't it? The way we have to lose everything to find ourselves again." I nod, feeling a surge of gratitude for this journey, for the lessons hidden in the heartache. "Yeah," I say, glancing at the embers glowing softly in the night. "But maybe that's what makes it worth it." The next morning, I pack up my things, ready to head back home. The drive feels different this time, lighter, like I'm carrying only what I need and leaving behind everything that held me down. I play my favorite music, sing along, and let myself enjoy the ride, the final stretch of a journey that's transformed me in ways I never expected. When I finally pull into my driveway, the house stands quiet, just as I left it, waiting for me to make it my own. I unlock the door and step inside, feeling a sense of welcome, of peace. This is my space now, and I realize that I'm ready to fill it with new memories, to make it a home that reflects who I've become. The first thing I do is grab my new list of goals, the one I wrote back at the beginning of the trip. I pin it to the wall in my office, a reminder of the dreams I'll chase, the life I'm going to create. There's a sense of excitement bubbling up, a thrill at the thought of everything that lies ahead. I spend the next few days settling back in, reconnecting with friends, letting them know that I'm okay. I even reach out to the stranger from the bonfire, exchanging a few messages, sharing updates and encouragement. It feels good to know there are others on this journey, each of us finding our way in our own time. As the days turn into weeks, I throw myself into new projects, new hobbies. I volunteer, I take up hiking, I even start painting again, something I hadn't done in years. Each day feels like a step toward reclaiming my life, shaping it into something that's truly mine. And one evening, as I sit on the back porch watching the sun set, I feel a sense of contentment, a peace that's taken root within me. I realize that I'm no longer defined by the betrayal, by the heartbreak. I've grown beyond it, transformed by the journey it set me on. For the first time in a long time, I look toward the future with open arms, ready for whatever comes my way. Life starts to feel like mine again. Each day a fresh page that I get to write without anyone else's influence. I build a rhythm, one that centers around things that fulfill me, quiet mornings with coffee and a good book, afternoons spent exploring new skills, and evenings catching up with friends who never judged me through any of this. Each day feels like a small victory, and it's incredible how much lighter the world seems without the weight of anger and hurt. One evening, as I'm sitting on my newly redecorated back porch, I scroll through my phone and land on a photo from the early days of my marriage. We're smiling happy, looking every bit the couple I thought we'd always be. I stare at the picture, the ghost of that life almost tangible, but there's no bitterness anymore, just a gentle acceptance. It was a chapter, a meaningful one, sure, but one that has ended. I delete the photo and feel a quiet sense of closure as I watch it disappear. I don't need it anymore. I don't need reminders of a past that no longer serves me. What I need is a clear path forward, and now I have it. The next weekend, I take another step toward my new life. I decide to host a small gathering, inviting friends over to christen the new space and celebrate this fresh start. I put up lights on the back porch, fill the house with the music I love, and cook a meal that fills the air with rich, comforting scents. It's a night filled with laughter, with stories, with friends who've become my new support system. As the night goes on, I find myself talking to a friend of a friend, someone I haven't met before, a kind-eyed woman with a warm smile who seems to get the journey I'm on without even knowing the details. She asks about my interests, my dreams, my goals, and before I realize it, we're lost in conversation, sharing laughs and stories as if we've known each other for years. It's not romantic, not yet, but there's something undeniably comforting in the connection, a feeling that reminds me of the warmth and kindness I deserve in my life. After the guests leave, I sit on the back porch, alone but content, feeling the echoes of laughter and friendship linger in the quiet night. This, I realize, is what life can be, a series of moments that don't have to be grand or complicated, just honest, fulfilling, and real. The days that follow bring a new sense of possibility. I start signing up for local events, joining a hiking group, even volunteering at a community center. Each new experience broadens my perspective, pulls me further from the shadows of my past, and fills me with a deeper sense of purpose. I don't just feel like I'm healing. I feel like I'm growing, evolving into someone stronger, more resilient, more at peace. One day, as I'm packing up some things to donate, I come across the wedding album again. I pause, flipping through it with a calm detachment, appreciating it for what it was. There was love there once, real love, and while it's over now, it served its purpose, taught me things I needed to learn. I tuck the album into the donation box, feeling a sense of closure I hadn't anticipated. It's time to let even those memories go. As I carry the box to my car, ready to drop it off, I realize something profound. I'm ready for whatever comes next. I don't know what the future holds, and for the first time, I'm okay with that. Life is uncertain, unpredictable, but it's also full of endless possibilities. And right now, those possibilities feel like promises waiting to be fulfilled. I turn on the radio, a song I used to love filling the air, and as I drive toward the donation center, I feel lighter, freer. The road stretches out before me, wide open, a blank canvas ready for new memories, new dreams, and a future that's finally fully mine. Weeks turn into months, and with each passing day, I find myself more settled, more comfortable in the life I've built. There are still moments where the past tries to creep in, memories that tug at my mind when I least expect it, but they don't hold the same weight anymore. They're just reminders of a chapter that has closed, a stepping stone that led me here. The friend of a friend from that night on my porch, a woman named Sarah, has become a regular presence in my life. We text, meet for coffee now and then, and over time, our connection deepens. It's not forced or rushed. It's a natural, quiet companionship that feels refreshing and real. She understands me without judgment, and I find myself opening up in ways I hadn't thought possible after everything that happened. One evening, as we sit at a small cafe on a rainy night, she looks at me thoughtfully and says, "You seem lighter, happier, like you're finally living for yourself." Her words strike a chord, and I realize she's right. This journey, painful as it was, has brought me to a place I never imagined. A place of self-respect, independence, and a joy that comes from within. I smile, nodding. I think for the first time in a long time, I finally know who I am. It's a revelation that feels both simple and profound. I've learned that happiness isn't about what someone else can give you, but about what you find within yourself. It's about living authentically, choosing your own path, and creating a life that reflects who you are, not who you're expected to be. As the months roll on, Sarah and I grow closer. We share dreams, plans, and laughter, and slowly, I feel the possibility of love blooming again. It's a gentle, tentative feeling, but it's enough to remind me that life has more to offer, that there are still beautiful chapters left to write. I continue to expand my horizons, taking classes, traveling to new places, even signing up for an art workshop that challenges me to reconnect with the creativity I once loved. Each step forward is a reminder of the resilience I've found, the courage I've built in the wake of betrayal. And one day, as I'm walking through a familiar part of town, I pass by a shop window and catch my reflection. I stop, taking in the person staring back at me. There's a confidence in my gaze, a quiet strength that I've earned, and for the first time, I truly like the person I see. I've come through the fire, and while there are scars, they're marks of growth, of healing, of transformation. I make a promise to myself, right there on that bustling street. I promise to keep choosing me, to keep honoring the lessons I've learned, to live a life filled with purpose and authenticity. I promise to embrace the joy, the pain, and the beauty of whatever comes next, knowing that I am strong enough to handle it all. As I walk away, I feel a sense of peace, a contentment that settles deep in my bones. This is my life. Messy, unpredictable, imperfect, but it's mine. And that, more than anything, is enough. So here's to new beginnings, to the strength we find in ourselves, to the courage to love again, and to the promise of brighter days ahead. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and if there's one thing I hope you take away, it's this. No matter how dark the path may seem, there's always a way forward. Embrace the journey, find your own light, and keep moving. The best is yet to come. Thank you for reading, and remember, you are stronger than you know. If this story resonates with you, feel free to share your own experiences or reflections below. And if you want to hear more stories like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for the next chapter in our journey together.